from the leaf-strewn studios of Univest at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA. It is time for another enriching episode of chemical-free horticultural hijinks. You bet your garden. The leaves are falling, and that means it's time to collect the most precious amendment you can give your garden. Or is it wrong to deprive overwintering insects of their off-season home? I'm Mike McGrath, and on today's show, we'll discuss how you can protect those insects and still shred some leaves for mulch and compost making. Plus your fabulous phone call questions, comments, tips, tricks, suggestions, and symphonically serene stratifications. So stay right where you are, cats and kittens, because it's all coming up faster than you leafing away right after this.
Support for You Bet Your Garden is provided by the Espoma Company, offering a complete selection of natural organic plant foods and potting soils. More information about Espoma and the Espoma Natural Gardening Community can be found at espoma.com.
Welcome to another thrilling episode of You Bet Your Garden from the Univest studios at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA. I am your host, Mike McGrath, and coming up later in the show, you wouldn't think fall leaves could stir up a ton of controversy, but they have over the past couple of years, and we'll discuss the best ways to utilize those leaves in your garden while still protecting wildlife. Very interesting. You won't want to miss it, and you won't. Just stay tuned for after more of your fabulous phone calls at 888-492-9444. Paul, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Paul. How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing Ducky.
I'm fine. Good to hear Ducky's doing well.
Yes, Ducky is here. Ducky is in the studio. Where are you, Paul?
I am in Albany, Oregon, or as I say, beautiful Albany, Oregon.
Make up your mind.
Okay.
One thing about doing this show is there's so many people who live in, like, New York, Texas. I mean, it's like, did they run out of names? And don't tell me you were.
Texas.
And don't tell me you were first, because you weren't. All right. So, Albany, Oregon. Put me in the part of the state you're in.
We're in the Willamette Valley. We're just on the I-5 south of Salem, Oregon, the capital.
Oh, a great wine growing region, right?
Very good Pinots here, yes.
Okay. Excellent. What can we do you for?
Well, so I decided I've been doing gardening for a few years, and I wanted to get into composting as the next step. And I have an HOA, very strict rules. So I got a hot bin composter. The idea, it's all contained. But, and last fall, I invested in the reverse blower so I could shred my leaves, and I collected bags of leaves and started composting. And it just didn't seem to go anywhere. I thought I was doing my mixture correctly, but, come the middle of summer, it didn't seem like stuff was breaking down the way it was supposed to. And now I feel like I just have a pile of rotting leaves that you can actually see the shape of.
Hey, don't disparage rotting leaves, pal. That's what
okay.
That's what grew the hardwood forests, the Great Plains, the fields of wildflowers. Okay, so you shredded your leaves.
Yeah.
What else did you put in?
Well, mostly vegetable kitchen scraps, and then I would try some other things too to try to get the heat. It seemed like I never got the heat up to what it was supposed to be. So, I tried the coffee grounds, and I had a friend that assured me that his lawn wasn't treated. He had a little property, and that was the only thing that got the heat up was the grass clippings.
Yeah, and that's exactly correct. Shredded leaves alone will turn into compost, but it's not going to be immediate. And the more shredded they are, the faster it'll happen. One basic rule of composting is the smaller the particle size, the more rapidly the material will turn into compost. Now, people yell at me about this, but most kitchen scraps are, quote, cold. They don't have a lot of nitrogen. So they help, but they do help feed the living organisms on the leaves, and it is the leaves that become the compost. Now, to make hot compost, you need a hot source of nitrogen, which can be poultry manure, well-composted horse manure. I have always found that coffee grounds are one of the best. And again, if you're sure they're from a non-treated lawn, grass clippings are 10% nitrogen. But you should tell your friend to leave the clippings on the lawn because, that feeds the lawn. He's really taking away the natural nutrients there. And I've been to Oregon many times, and you're not exactly Seattle, so there's not a coffee shop on every corner, but you can find one pretty easily. So I would simply urge you, now that we're getting into the warmer weather and the odds are more in your favor, start collecting coffee grounds from a shop and add those in good numbers. But it's also very important to mix. The old advice used to be to layer your compost, a layer of this, layer of that. And whoever decided that failed, basic chemistry. You don't get a reaction by isolating ingredients. You get a reaction by combining them. So there is a simple tool that you can buy. Now, you said you have the hot bin, and I think that comes with a little turning device.
It did, yes.
Yeah. I prefer a true compost aerator. This is, a long tube that you push down into the compost, and then when you pull it up via the handles, blades come out the sides, and they really mix the stuff up.
Oh,
but,
okay.
In reality, composting is often a multi-season process. The leaves fall in the fall. We collect them, we shred them. But even the best mixed piles are going to shut down when the really nasty winter weather hits. Then, when the weather starts to warm up again, as you've noticed, your leaves have composted. They have begun to rot. So now it's really your game to lose. Very rarely, unless you're real good at it and live in exactly the right climate, a compost pile begun in the fall may not be ready to use in the spring. But if you add some more nitrogen and really mix it up, it's going to be ready to cover your beds for the winter, which may be even a better use for it.
Okay. So what would be my ratio of the dry leaves to the either the coffee grounds or the manure?
Well, I mean, it's different. It depends on what you have. In a normal size compost bin, I recommend a 5-gallon bucket of used coffee grounds. But I made that up. I just that seems like the right amount. Shredding the leaves really finely can really help accelerate the process. This year, my intern and I are experimenting with double shredding the leaves, emptying the bag of shredded leaves on the ground and then sucking them up and shredding them again. And so far, the results are really positive. So composting is not baking. You're not making, you're not checking the oven temperature. You're not timing perfectly. You're not yelling at people not to open the door or make noise. It's more like compost. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and the compost will teach you as you do this season after season.
Okay. Now I have these it's half full. I sent you some pictures. What do I do with those leaves that are there?
Well, basically, it would not be a bad
composted.
No, I know. Basically, it would not be a bad idea to empty out the bin. You may be surprised that the bottom is composed of a good amount of finished compost. So then you pile up the stuff that didn't get composted, which is generally on the top, and you mix it with some fresh shredded leaves and some coffee grounds, and now you're cooking faster. So every year, if you follow this process, the compost will be done earlier in the season. It's like anything else. You just got to be patient, and after 5 years, you'll do it without thinking. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Which is how I do all my gardening, and live my life, and All right, you take care, man. Good luck.
Thank you. Love your show. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Two little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs, little bugs. Little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug. One little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug. One little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug. One little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug, little bug.
Well, it's time for me to take a little break and remind everybody who has not yet been blessed with a killing frost to bring in those last green tomatoes before the fruits are killed by cold, and then put them to good southern use. But don't go making that big batch of fried green tomatoes just yet, because we'll be right back to discuss the many ways you can use your fall leaves. I'm Mike McGrath, and you're listening to You Bet Your Garden from the Univest Studios at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA.
Support for You Bet Your Garden is provided by the Espoma Company, offering a complete selection of natural organic plant foods and potting soils. More information about Espoma and the Espoma Natural Gardening Community can be found at espoma.com.
Welcome back to another thrilling episode of You Bet Your Garden. From the Univest Studios at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA, I am your host, Mike McGrath. Coming up later in the show, there is a controversy swirling around fall leaves, just like they swirl around themselves sometimes. Should we leave the leaves for insects to overwinter under, or should we collect them for compost and mulch making? It's going to be an enthusiastic debate that I will have with myself after a couple more of your fabulous phone calls at 888-492-9444. 888-492-9444. Suzanne, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's always nice to talk to you.
It's always nice to talk to you. How are you today?
I'm wonderful, except it's pouring rain, and my tomatoes are splitting. I don't know why. But other than that, it's fabulous. We needed the rain.
Well, before I ask where you are, Suzanne, you just told me why your tomatoes are splitting. When you
Well, I know, but I don't know why that happens.
Well, because what happens is when you get too much rain with certain varieties of tomatoes, the insides get filled with moisture, but the skins are not able to expand as rapidly, so the tomatoes wind up splitting. Now, as long as they're ripe, they're perfectly safe to eat. But if this has been a problem, I would urge you next year to investigate varieties that their catalog description or their internet description says they are less vulnerable to splitting and or cracking.
Oh, okay.
Because some varieties can
I'll
expand at the same rate.
Yeah. Okay. Just wondering why. I was curious. I know it happens, but
Okay, so
all right, great.
Where are you?
I'm in Willamette Valley, Oregon, which is just southwest of Portland.
I know it well. An excellent wine growing region.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking at the vineyards now, and they've all been picked, fortunately, before the rain.
Oh, God, that's so important.
Yeah.
Not only because, you can't pick wet grapes. I mean, they're going to rot on you. But you want dry weather so that the flavor is concentrated in the grapes. It's almost exactly the same as your tomato issue. They get filled with water, and it can cause splitting even on grapes, and it dilutes the flavor. So, if you are growing grapes for the first time and nasty wet weather for an extended period is coming, get out there and pick.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not what you're calling about. What can we do you for?
Well, I've expanded my garden so I can grow more garlic. And first thing I need to do is solarize it. But I have 3 small plum trees in that area. And I'd like to know, we're going to do this next summer, but I'd like to know how far out from those trees do I have to go so I don't kill the trees?
Okay, so
how far out with the plastic?
Is this soil? Are you afraid it has pathogens in it, or is this just for weed control?
Weeds, and my other concern is it's full of gophers, and I'm hoping if we solarize it, it'll tell them to go away. Unfortunately, they probably will go into my garden that I already have. I'm afraid of that. But so I don't know. Maybe if that's not the right thing to do. It's primarily for weeds.
Well, I know from gophers, and they are a tough pest. Here on the East Coast, we have to deal more with groundhogs. But I know out where you are, gophers are the biggest problem. An old friend of mine who I worked with at Rodale Press back in the 90s moved to the wine country in California and experienced gophers for the first time. So he learned how to collect snakes, black snakes. He had a snake git in the back of his car, which is a device you use to corral a snake, and a big burlap bag. And whenever he found a snake sunning itself, like on a sidewalk or a roadway, he would bring it back and he would drop it down the hole, the gopher hole. And I can guarantee you that was a very effective and totally organic solution.
God, I've been putting cayenne pepper in my garden because the moles get in there, and I said, why are my carrots dying? Well, they didn't have any roots.
Yeah, and carrots are nothing but
cayenne
roots.
pepper seems to help. And dog hair, I have poodles, so I'm putting their poodle hair in there.
I think, the dog hair, brushing your dog and using the hair as a mulch, That's something I learned during a tour of the bulb fields in Holland back in the 90s. That was a new concept they had of protecting tulips, which are the tastiest of spring bulbs.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to mess with any of that, just plant daffodils because they're toxic and nobody wants to eat them.
I've surrounded my tulip beds with daffodils.
Oh, well.
And then I surrounded that whole planting area with lavender, rosemary, and sage.
Okay.
It's sort of an herbal fence. So I haven't had a problem with my tulips, but my vegetable garden, oh my God, it's terrible.
Well, and now you remind me because, we're talking about planting garlic, which is very similar to planting spring bulbs in terms of the seasonality. First of all, I don't think your gophers are going to eat your garlic. If anything, they would be repelled by it. Because you think about your above ground plantings that you're hopeful for. Now you've got an excellent mammal repellent underground. So, I've never had problems with any kind of mammal pest with my garlic beds. Over 35 years, I have had some problems with pathogens. But I've overcome that with a couple of tricks I've learned over the years. I think that, first of all, planting the garlic is going to repel the gophers naturally. So I wouldn't worry about that. I don't know how much you're up for collecting snakes, but they are the prime predator of your gophers. And there are ways to make your habitat snake friendly, and half of our listeners are now cringing in a corner.
I love snakes.
Okay, good. A water source and an area to sun on, like pieces of slate or similar material out in the sun near the area that you want to protect, and they will naturally colonize that. And if you want extra protection, we're talking down the hole. I don't know how far you are from, say, a San Francisco's or another Chinatown. But if you go into a true Chinese grocery in one of these neighborhoods, you can buy a bag of crushed hot peppers the size of a pillow for a very reasonable price. And that's what you pour down the hole.
Oh,
Some people, if they're
easier than the cayenne pepper.
Well, cayenne pepper is not the worst, but you want really hot peppers and you want bulk, and it's not going to harm anything. When it comes to things like tulips, people will plant sharp stones around the tulip bulb to keep critters at bay. There used to be a product actually called Volaway or something like that, that you would line the tulip hole with these, pre-made sharp stones, and that would keep critters away. But I don't think you want to mess with solarization. I don't think it's necessary, and I'm not sure that your region has a long enough, hot enough season for it to be truly effective. And it would not chase your varmints. I think all it would do would bring heating to their homes. And after that, they're going to want air conditioning in the middle of summer, and you'll never get rid of them.
Well, then what do I do with the weeds?
Well, what I would suggest is
I don't want to put poisons on them. I hate them.
No. There's never any reason for that. I would recommend what's called a stale seed bed. If the area has not been used for growing for a while, you run a lawnmower over it and scalp it. And, I want to see dirt blowing out the back of the mower. And then you water it, and you wait approximately 10 days to 2 weeks, and then make sure you have a sharp, hoe. I recommend a diamond hoe, which essentially has a razor blade at the end of the handle. And when the new weeds come up, you slice them off at the ground level, and that's it. They're not going to come back. You've made them use up any energy they had left after your first assault. They didn't get any photosynthesis, and now they're dead.
Ooh, I like that idea.
All right, my pleasure. You take care. 888-492-9444. Terry, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Thank you, Michael. How are you?
I'm just ducky. Thanks for asking. How's Terry?
Terry is wonderful. Calling you from Flourtown, Pennsylvania.
Okay, that's where all the flour comes from. And
Indeed.
What can we do for Terry in Flourtown?
I'll give you some background first. I do have a question that leads up to it, though. I purchased a house a few years back, had several trees that had to come down because they were basically dead when I purchased them. One happened to be a silver maple, which left my grassy area very acidic, had several years of trying to get it back to where it needed to be.
No, stop you right there. The silver maple had nothing to do with the acidity of your soil. It is a trash tree, but it's not guilty of that crime.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I started to rebuild the lawn about 6 years ago, and I was turned on by you and your advice, and I sent my soil to the Penn State Extension, the Agricultural Analytical Services, in 2021, which I did send you a report, and I've had a lot of success since then. Now I'm trying to finish and make the lawn back to where it needs to be. I've been using Milorganite fertilizer for the past couple seasons, but no lime has been added because I saturated with lime and everything is going well. So the front lawn.
Wait a minute. Two men say they're Jesus. One of them must be wrong. You sent us a ton of paperwork, and your Penn State soil lab said your soil pH was perfect.
Yes, but I haven't limed anything because it was over the limits for the lime.
It says your soil pH is 6.9, right in the middle of optimum.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I switched over to Milorganite.
Milorganite is dried human poop. It is taken from the sewer system in Milwaukee, and unfortunately, it's not composted. It is just dried. And there were many lawsuits and scandals when it was first released. They were using it on pro football fields, and the players were coming down sick all season long. Since then, they claim to have been able to cut down on the violations of toxic waste that got into the material, but I do not recommend it. It's not organic as far as I'm concerned. There's too many contaminants in it, and regular compost is better.
Okay, that's kind of what leads to this question and answer session. So in Springfield Township, we have a compost, free compost you can come pick up yourself. It's helped out by the University of Pennsylvania, and I'm trying to get to the source if it's good enough to put on the lawn like you recommend or not. So I've written to them, I've called them, and I can't get the correct answer.
Okay.
But it's free compost.
Okay. Now they make it there, right?
Yes.
Is it
Morris Arboretum.
Is it also a drop-off site?
It is not.
It is not. So we don't know what's going into it.
Yes,
and they claim not to have paper.
Correct.
That's doubtful. Anytime you have bulk compost that you're offering to the public, you're supposed to have an analysis done every year or twice a year, and that information should be available to the buyer. But I'll tell you my favorite trick. Go over to the site with a 5-gallon bucket. Take some samples, take them home, get 2 nice big planting pots. Fill one with just the compost, fill the other one, but plant some seeds in it. You know, almost anything you have left over from the beginning of the season, although pea or bean seeds are preferred. And then you put them in good light and you water them. After 2 weeks, if the bucket that was empty has no plants in it, then you know you're not getting compost with a lot of weed seeds. If the plants that grow up from the other one where you seeded grow up or don't grow up at all or grow up looking sickly, then the compost is contaminated with herbicides, which generally happens when regular grass clippings are included in the compost process. Grass clippings from treated lawns can destroy tons of otherwise good compost.
Interesting.
You
Perfect.
don't need them.
That's exactly.
You don't need them. It's cowboy gardening. You can figure it out for yourself and with the evidence of your own eyes. You don't even have to trust anybody.
Excellent advice. Thank you.
All right, man?
You got it. Can I ask you one more question?
Gad?
Some of the hints you've given on the air. Are you a graduate of a Falcon school?
Yes. Northeast Catholic High School for boys. Class of 69. Feeling fine, drinking wine all the time.
I thought so. Class of 1980, lad. Thank you.
Oh, youngster. All right. Okay, Terry, take care.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Well, it's time for me to take a little break and urge everyone who still has tomatoes kind of growing in their garden, despite nights in the 40s, to give it up. Strip those green tomatoes off the plants and bring them inside. Sit them out on the kitchen counter, and any that have reached full size will ripen up over the next week or so. But don't go freeing yourself from tomato tyranny just yet, because we'll be right back with some thoughtful thoughts on fall leaves and more of your fabulous phone calls. I'm Mike McGrath, and you're listening to You Bet Your Garden from the Univest studios at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA.
This is 91.3 FM, WLVR Bethlehem, WLVR.org.
Welcome back to another thrilling episode of You Bet Your Garden from the Univest studios at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA. I am your host, Mike McGrath, and we are in the stretch now, cats and kittens. In just a little bit, we will get to a philosophical discussion about how to use your fall leaves. When we mulch them, when we shred them, when we make compost, are we robbing beneficial insects of their overwintering sites? It's something to think about, and we'll be thinking about it after a couple more of your fabulous phone calls at 888-492-9444, 888-492-9444. Alex, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Hello.
Hello, Alex.
Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you, too. How you doing?
I'm doing just wonderful.
There you go, living the life. And where is Alex just wonderful?
Woodstown, New Jersey, down in Salem County.
Okay. And what can we do you for?
Oh, I got a ginormous rhododendron bush in my front yard, and I just want to be able to prune it to a certain degree, make it a little bit more orderly, and just make sure it doesn't take over the entire front of my house.
Boy, why would you want to prevent that? In the landscape in front of my house, I grow a variety of ornamental plants, including a rhododendron that was old when I moved in some 35 years ago. And it outblooms the flowering cherries, the flowering crab apples, the azaleas. I mean, people stop and take pictures. And it's now over the roof line. And I have tried to prune it a couple times over the years to, quote, clean it up, which means I'm as ignorant as I claim other people are, and I was probably bored. So every time I've done that, I've created gaps that have taken years to fill in. So like all men, I learned my lesson the hard way, you know.
Right.
Yeah, you have to screw up before you get smart.
Oh, I know.
So I would say, unless you have a pressing reason, say there's one branch that's blocking your walkway or something, I would just relish the fact that you have this beautiful ancient plant. I mean, you know, when these things get covered in flowers, there's nothing like them.
Right.
So do you still want to prune it?
Just if there was a way I could make it a little bit more shapely, I do. It does have a couple branches kind of shooting out at odd angles, especially towards the top. So I didn't know if there would be an opportunity just to do some very light pruning, just to make it a little bit more round and spherical.
How tall is the top?
Ooh, I want to say the whole thing all set is probably 8 feet tall. I need a ladder and I need to lean over the thing.
Okay, it's still small. It's still small. Like I said, mine is over the roof line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's amazing. First of all, no pruning now.
Okay.
All the flower, and you can see with rhododendrons, they're the classic example. You can see the fully formed flower buds.
Right.
They're big and fat and they're obvious. So you don't want to take a single flower to be off.
Gotcha.
So if you're determined to do this, you want to wait until the spring. Wait until the flowering show is over and the flowers are totally fading. Then, yes, first up, please don't try to prune them into a ball or a square or a hedge. That's not the beauty of the plant. The beauty of the plant is how it grows in nature. So anything you do would be with hand shears, and you would do less than more. Remember that the top part of the plant is the actively growing portion. So you don't want to do any damage up there. For instance, if you get caught up in the spring, fertilizer happens, and you're looking at it in July and saying, I never got around to that, you're right. You never got around to it, so you wait another year.
Gotcha.
But in this case, less is more. If you really think you need to do something, do 1/3 of what you think you need to do, walk away, come back 2 days later, and then go, oh, no, I did more than enough. It is really easy to do a little bit more pruning after a week at the right time of year than it is to be caught outside with duct tape and Gorilla Glue trying to repair the damage.
Oh, I've done that before.
Yeah. So I would say, people get pruning happy. They get pruning obsessed. The plants know what they're doing. I honestly believe you'll be more satisfied if you leave it alone and grow to appreciate the style it wants to present itself in.
Okay. Just to be clear, would you consider that to be like the perfect time to prune? Would that be early summer after it blooms?
After the blooms are finished, but right away because it begins to set the new flowers quickly.
For the next year.
Yeah, you're not going by the calendar. The plant will tell you what to do if you pay attention to it.
All right.
All right, man?
All right. Yeah. It was a good year for the rhododendron. All over my town, I noticed.
Yeah, and so don't screw it up, okay?
Well, I'll try not to.
All right. Good luck to you, sir. Bye-bye.
All right. I appreciate that.
All right. As promised, it is time for the question of the week, where we will discuss how to handle leaf litter. I always go on a tear this time of year, urging gardeners everywhere to shred and collect every fall leaf possible for raised bed mulching and compost making. Shredded fall leaves, after all, are the backbone of a proper organic garden, a perfect weed-suppressing mulch, and the essential element in a compost pile, where they are difficult, if not impossible, to replace. What about paper? Well, if handled correctly, shredded office paper, newsprint, and those nifty compostable takeout food containers will break down. But to what avail? Fall leaves are full of plant nutrition and essential micronutrients, as well as billions of microbes. Teeming with microscopic life, they put life back into worn-out soils. Paper products have none of those attributes. They are sterile and nutrient-free. Yes, paper will technically compost, meaning it will eventually degrade, but it will not become compost. However, various societies and universities have begun questioning the removal of, quote, leaf litter. Some delightful butterflies and important pollinators overwinter in leaf litter, they note, and collecting and shredding those fall leaves could lead to a decline in their numbers, or help explain an already obvious decline in species like lightning bugs. I feel compelled to add that some nasty pest insects also spend winter the same way, like dangerous and aggressive yellow jackets. As the summertime hive begins to die, impregnated females take flight, overwinter in leaf litter, and emerge in the spring. They find an old mouse hole or a vole hole, fly into it, and begin to birth the workers who will enlarge the hole and build a large complex nest inside, a nest that will hold thousands of mad stingers by mid-August. On the other hand, one of our most amazing insects, the hummingbird clearwing moth, goes through part of its life cycle nestled inside a thin cocoon under leaf litter. It's a day-flying moth that looks and acts like a tiny hummingbird and is an excellent pollinator. It's a delight to see one of these false hummers in the garden, buzzing away in one of nature's greatest disguises. So what are we supposed to do? Use our leaves to make compost that will help balance the ill effects of chemical farming and gardening that deplete our soils? Or should we leave the leaves and let nature take her course? Thankfully, I don't suffer this moral dilemma. My home and garden are surrounded by untouched woodlands. I have a small forest just across the street and a larger one behind and around my home where leaves are left to fall, and the only plants pulled are invasives like multiflora rose and overly aggressive natives like poison ivy and Virginia creeper. We do, however, suck up the leaves that fall on the garden and walkways, shredding them as we suck, using a leaf blower with a vacuum setting, and then pile them into bins where they are mixed with spent coffee grounds to eventually transform into better garden soil than anything you can buy. Kitchen waste, that goes into my multi-level worm bin. Now, I do have kind of a lawn out back that gets sucked when the leaf fall is ridiculously heavy. The rest of the time, the leaves are returned to the soil with a dedicated mulching mower, providing all of the food that grass is going to get. Back to the main event. Should you leave your leaves alone or work with them to your horticultural benefit? The answer depends a good deal on where you live and what you saw in your garden this past year. Location. The pest and beneficial insects that spend the winter in leaf litter vary across the country. Did you have a severe insect problem on a specific crop this past season? Search your state's official extension website to see if that pest overwinters in your area. If it does, where? Underground? Above ground? Perhaps in the stalks of plants left standing? If it's underground, remove the leaf litter so the soil will freeze hard. If it's in the litter, triple shred and compost those leaves. If it's in the stems, remove them, triple shred, and compost. Note, you must clean up the leaf litter underneath disease and or insect-prone plants every season. If you choose to compost it, this task must be done in a hot pile to prevent future problems. Conversely, you should research which butterflies, beneficials, and pollinators spend the winter in leaves in your region. Unless the leaves are on your lawn or a patio walkway or other potentially slippery surface, leave them be. Otherwise, just rake them off the lawn and walkways and into small piles. That won't hurt the good or bad bugs sleeping inside. Leaves put out for curbside pickup. If you want to make compost and use shredded leaves for mulch, but have a small area and don't want to risk harming overwintering sites, collect leaves that other homeowners have foolishly thrown away. Don't take any bags that also contain grass clippings, as they could make contaminated compost. And if you gather more than you need, make little piles of unshredded leaves around the garden to provide wintertime homes, and use the rest, shredded of course, for mulch and compost making. A final note, give special protection to fallen leaves near water sources. Frogs, toads, salamanders, and lightning bugs are especially likely to use these sites. Well, that sure was an interesting and introspective look at fall leaves now, wasn't it? Luckily for you can read those thoughtful thoughts over at your leisure or your leisure, because the question of the week appears in print at the Gardens Alive website. Just click the link for the question of the week at our website, which is still and will forever be YouBetYourGarden.org. Gardens Alive supports the You Bet Your Garden question of the week, and you will always find the latest question of the week at the Gardens Alive website. Yikes, my producer is threatening to liberate my leaves if I don't get out of this studio. We must be out of time. But you can call us anytime at 888-492-9444, or send us your email. You're tired, you're poor, you're wretched refuse teeming towards our garden shore at YBYG@WLVT.org. And please, if you email us, please include your location. And if you don't do it, and we send you an email asking what's your location, please do not send an email that simply says Columbus, Ohio. Thank you. You'll find all of our contact information, plus answers to your garden questions, audio of this show, audio and video of previous shows, and links to our internationally renowned podcast. It's all at our website, YouBetYourGarden.org. You Bet Your Garden is an hour-long public radio show and podcast produced and delivered to you every week from the Univest studios at Lehigh Valley Public Media in Bethlehem, PA. Our radio show is distributed by PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. You Bet Your Garden was created by Mike McGrath. Mike McGrath was created when he saw the Three Stooges live on stage at Scioli's in 1960. Ken Queter plays our theme song. Our chief content officer is Yoni Greenbaum. Our angel of the airways is Christine Dempsey. And our engineer is cheerful Charlie Sarah. Our social media director is Amanda Norfleet. Check out her fine work and ponder pretty pictures of other people's plants at the You Bet Your Garden Facebook page. Our peerless princess of profound production is Teresa Radke. Our audio editor is the lovely Jonas Bowen. Our mascots are Zach the Tack Wisniewski and Ducky the Dancing Duck. Our beloved and beleaguered CEO is Tim Fallon. I'm your host, Mike McGrath, and I'll be begging my tomato plants to self-destruct until I can see you again next week.